They were the kings of funk CAMEO. From the wild 1970s to their chart-topping 1980s anthems like Word Up and Candy, they ruled the dance floor with a sound that defined a generation. But behind the flashing lights and the iconic red codpiece of Larry Blackmon was a storm of lawsuits, betrayals, and heartbreak that tore the group apart. Friendships collapsed, members walked away, and shocking scandals left fans speechless. Today, in 2025, the question remains, where are those legends now? Which members faded into quiet lives, and who's still keeping the funk alive? Stay tuned, because we're taking you inside the rise, the fall, and the unforgettable legacy of CAMEO. The roots of CAMEO stretch back to a rough beginning. Larry Blackmon once recalled witnessing a man being shot in front of him on the streets of Queens, a violent reminder of the world that shaped his determination. In 1974, he formed a group called the New York City Players. They hustled in small clubs, playing for little money, trying to break into an unforgiving music industry. By 1975, the hard work paid off when Casablanca Records signed them under its new imprint, Chocolate City Records. But there was a problem. The name sounded too close to the already famous Ohio Players, and to avoid a lawsuit, the band needed a new identity. The answer appeared almost by accident. While in Canada, the members noticed a pack of cigarettes called CAMEO. The name stuck. Before that rebirth, Larry Blackmon had been experimenting with music in another band called East Coast, alongside Gregory Johnson, vocalist Gwen Guthrie, James Wheeler, Melvin Wells, Michael Harris, and Harris Fire. In 1973, East Coast released one album through Encounter Records. But with more than a dozen members constantly clashing, the group collapsed. From those ashes came CAMEO, a leaner, more determined force ready to conquer funk. When CAMEO first emerged, they carried an enormous lineup, with horns blazing and a sound full of ambition. But with fame came friction. Money was the biggest issue. Several members felt they weren't getting a fair share from the records. And the sold-out shows, resentment spread quickly. The disagreements over finances turned into arguments over control. Many musicians complained that too many decisions were made by Larry Blackmon alone. Charismatic, stylish, and unforgettable with his towering high-top fade and red codpiece, he became the unmistakable face of CAMEO. But the more control he took, the more others felt silenced. One by one, original members left, and though new musicians stepped in to keep the band moving forward, the unique chemistry that defined their early years began to fade. At the heart of CAMEO's rise and fall is one man, Larry Blackmon. With his towering high-top fade, flamboyant red codpiece, and commanding stage persona, he became the unmistakable face of funk in the 1980s. For millions of fans, he wasn't just the frontman, he was CAMEO itself. His sharp vocals, eccentric fashion, and relentless drive made him a star. But the same iron will that built his legend also fueled the conflicts that shattered the band. From the very beginning, Larry Blackmon was ambitious. In the 1970s, he pushed funk into new territory, fusing horns with emerging technologies like drum machines and synthesizers. His vision reshaped the sound of the era, giving us hits like She's Strange, Word Up, and Candy, tracks that still define parties and dance floors decades later. He was a perfectionist who demanded excellence, and that intensity drove CAMEO to the top of the charts. But behind the glitter, there was a darker reality. Former bandmates accused Larry Blackmon of controlling everything: creative direction, finances, and even the brand of CAMEO itself. Many musicians felt reduced to sidemen in a group they had helped build. Some claimed their voices no longer mattered, that decisions were made behind closed doors, and that they were left to play supporting roles while Larry stood in the spotlight. The resentment built for years, finally boiling over into public disputes and lawsuits. One of the most bitter battles came when former members Nathan Lieutenant, Arnett Lieutenant, Gerald Bright, and Gregory Johnson sued Larry Blackmon, accusing him of withholding royalties from their classic hits. At the center of the lawsuit was about $13,000 in unpaid royalties. But the fight wasn't about numbers, it was about trust, dignity, and recognition. The controversies didn't stop there. Headlines exploded when Larry Blackmon was evicted from his Atlanta apartment after failing to pay $6,000 in rent. What shocked fans even more was the condition of the property: holes in the walls, broken appliances, and floors covered in dog waste. Repairs cost another $10,000, bringing the total bill to $16,000. The story painted a very different picture from the glamorous icon, who once ruled stages around the world. Yet despite all the drama, Larry Blackmon remains the face of CAMEO in 2025. Now 67 years old, he still performs on occasion, keeping the band's name alive. To some, he is a visionary who protected the group's legacy. To others, he is the reason friendships collapsed and lawsuits dragged on. But one truth is undeniable: without Larry Blackmon, there would be no CAMEO. His genius gave the world unforgettable funk, even if it came at the cost of the band itself. The battle didn't end there. Control over the band's name became a war when Larry Blackmon performed in Las Vegas in 2015 using the name CAMEO, sometimes with musicians who weren't part of the original lineup. The ex-members were furious. They argued they had earned the right to share the name and the profits, but Larry's lawyers blocked every attempt for them to perform as the original members of CAMEO. As if that weren't enough, tragedy struck. Wayne Cooper, the group's powerful early lead singer whose soaring voice had defined their sound, died of AIDS in 1984. He was only in his early 30s. His death was a devastating blow to both the band and their fans. Decades later, people still remember his voice lighting up songs like She's Strange and Sparkle. Through the late 1980s and into the 1990s, CAMEO kept producing albums machismo, Real Men Wear Black, and Emotional Violence, but their commercial power was fading. By the mid-1990s, they were no longer topping charts. Their last charting album, Sexy Sweet Thing, arrived in 2000, marking the end of an era. Still, their influence lived on. Mariah Carey sampled Candy for her 2001 hit Loverboy, which soared to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. In 2019, Beyoncé sampled Candy again in her version of Before I Let Go, bringing the band's magic to a new generation. And in 2016, CAMEO returned to the stage with a residency at the Westgate Las Vegas Resort and Casino, proving that their funk still had power. But the personal lives of the members told a different story. Larry Blackmon, once celebrated as funk royalty, faced humiliating headlines. At one point, he stopped paying rent on his Atlanta apartment. When he was evicted, the owners discovered holes in the walls, broken appliances, and floors covered in dog waste. The damage, combined with unpaid rent, cost more than $16,000. For fans, it was shocking. How could a man who once electrified the world now be remembered for eviction notices and ruined floors? It was a stark reminder of how far even legends can fall. So where are they now, in 2025? The surviving members of CAMEO live very different lives. Larry Blackmon, now 67, still performs under the name CAMEO and remains the face of the band, though controversies and lawsuits still shadow him. Aaron Mills, now in his 70s, became one of funk's greatest bassists and found new fame working with Outkast, contributing to hits like Ms. Jackson and Prototype. He lives a quieter life now, but is still remembered for the unforgettable grooves of Word Up and Candy. Tommy Jenkins, one of the original members, has largely stayed out of the spotlight, but occasionally appears at funk reunion shows. Nathan Lieutenant, the trumpet player, and his brother Arnett Lieutenant, the saxophonist, shows more private lives, occasionally surfacing for tribute events. And John Kellogg, once a singer with the group, took an entirely new path. He left music to become an entertainment lawyer and college professor, mentoring a new generation of artists. The story of CAMEO is one of contradictions. They were innovators who defined an era, but they were also torn apart by money, ego, and mistrust. They fought against stereotypes of funk musicians being wild and unprofessional, insisting they were businessmen, thinkers, and serious artists. Yet their legacy is clouded by lawsuits, bitterness, and tragedy. And still, every time a CAMEO track comes on, the world remembers the joy they brought. For a few minutes, The fights and betrayals vanish, and all that's left is the music, the pulse, the groove, the funk. So, what do you think was Cameo's downfall inevitable? Or could they have gone even higher without the chaos? Share your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you still groove to Word Up, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories of music legends. Thanks for watching.